Every time a jet lifts off the runway, it's burning something that started as a forgotten byproduct. A fuel so old it was originally distilled from coal, decades before anyone thought to pull it from crude oil instead. Today it powers aircraft crossing oceans, heats homes with no access to gas lines, and lights lanterns in places electricity has never reached. But almost nobody stops to ask, how does a thick, dark liquid pulled from underground actually become the precise, stable fuel trusted to keep a plane in the air? Let's find out. Welcome to the story behind it, where we take the objects and fuels quietly running our world and expose the engineering hiding underneath. If you love this kind of deep dive, subscribe now so you don't miss what's next. Before we get into how kerosene is made, let's nail down exactly what it is. Kerosene is a liquid hydrocarbon pulled from crude oil, sitting within a specific boiling range, roughly between 302 and 527 degrees Fahrenheit. That range puts it in an interesting middle ground, less volatile than gasoline, but more volatile than diesel, giving it a unique balance that makes it useful across a surprising number of applications. Here's a detail most people don't know. Kerosene wasn't always made from oil at all. Back in the 1800s, it was known as coal oil, and was originally distilled straight from coal, long before modern petroleum refining took over. Today it's almost entirely sourced from crude oil distillation, and it plays a critical role in aviation fuel, home heating oil, and even certain industrial solvents. The story of kerosene begins, like so many fuels, with crude oil, a naturally occurring liquid trapped in underground reservoirs, packed with thousands of different hydrocarbon compounds. Getting it out of the ground means drilling, whether offshore in deep ocean waters or onshore across oil fields. Once it reaches the surface, that crude oil travels by pipeline, ship, or truck to a refinery, because in its raw form, it's nearly useless. Crude oil has to be broken apart and refined into distinct products: gasoline, diesel, lubricating oils, and of course, kerosene. This is where the real transformation begins. Inside the refinery, the primary method used to break crude oil into its individual parts is called fractional distillation. The crude oil is heated inside a massive distillation tower until it turns into vapor, which then rises through a column lined with multiple trays, each one calibrated to capture a different fraction based on its boiling point. Heavier compounds condense lower in the tower, where temperatures stay high. Lighter compounds rise higher, condensing where it's cooler. Kerosene settles almost exactly in the middle, its vapor condensing on a mid-level tray and collected as its own distinct stream. But this straight-run kerosene, as it's called, isn't ready for use yet. It still has a journey ahead of it. Here's the problem. Raw kerosene straight off the distillation tower still contains sulfur, nitrogen compounds, and unsaturated hydrocarbons, contaminants that can hurt performance, stability, and emissions. That's where hydrotreating comes in. During hydrotreating, kerosene is mixed with hydrogen gas and passed over a catalyst under high heat and pressure. This process strips out sulfur and other impurities, leaving behind a cleaner, far more stable product. And if that kerosene is destined to become aviation-grade fuel, like Jet A or JP8, the standards climb even higher. Additional additives get blended in to improve combustion, lower the freezing point, or prevent corrosion inside fuel systems. If you're the kind of person who wants to understand exactly what's behind the fuels and products running our everyday world, that's exactly what the story behind it is built for, so make sure you're subscribed for what's coming next. Once treated, kerosene doesn't just get shipped out, it has to earn its place. Rigorous quality testing checks flash point, freeze point, density, and sulfur content, making sure the fuel burns evenly, resists freezing at high altitude, and stays chemically stable through long storage periods. If it clears every benchmark, the kerosene can then be blended with other compatible compounds or additives depending on where it's headed: aviation, home heating, or industrial use. From there, it's moved into storage, ready for packaging and distribution. Kerosene actually comes in several distinct forms, depending on how it's processed and where it's headed. The most recognized is aviation kerosene, covering Jet A, Jet A1, and military-grade JP8. the fuels powering jet engines across the entire globe, held to some of the strictest international standards in the industry. Then there's residential kerosene, still used today for heating, lamps, and cooking in areas without reliable access to electricity or gas infrastructure, a far more refined, less odorous version than the kerosene burned in the 19th century. And finally, there's industrial kerosene, used as a solvent, cleaning agent, and even in certain pesticide formulations. Each type demands its own handling and safety protocols, but underneath it all, the core manufacturing process stays remarkably consistent. Of course, producing and burning kerosene isn't without consequences. While it burns cleaner than heavier fuels like coal or diesel, it still releases carbon dioxide and small amounts of pollutants. And when spills or improper storage happen, the results can contaminate soil and water. That's why refineries operate under strict environmental regulations, and why users are advised to store kerosene in well-ventilated areas, away from heat sources, using it only in approved appliances or engines. Looking ahead, the aviation industry is actively exploring greener alternatives, including biokerosene made from plant oils or algae, aimed at cutting fossil fuel dependence and lowering carbon emissions. So next time you watch a jet cutting across the sky, light a kerosene lamp, or heat your home through a cold winter, remember the journey behind that fuel. From deep underground reservoirs, through towering refinery columns, through precise chemical treatment and rigorous safety testing, kerosene is far more than just a liquid you burn. It's a genuine product of science, engineering, and a century of refinement. Even as greener alternatives emerge on the horizon, kerosene remains a fuel quietly powering daily life and connecting people across the globe through air travel. If this kind of story pulled you in, that's exactly what we do here every episode. Hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time on The Story Behind It. Have you ever stopped to wonder where the things around you come from? How is glass made? Why is it called Bluetooth? Who invented paper? Why do airplane windows have tiny holes? The answers are often more fascinating than you might imagine. Welcome to The Story Behind It. This is the channel where we uncover the hidden stories behind the everyday things you use, see, eat, and rely on every single day. From the history of common objects to the science behind everyday life, from factory production lines to the origins of famous brands and inventions, we explore the facts that shape our world. Every episode is carefully researched and presented in a clear, engaging documentary style, making complex ideas simple, interesting, and easy to understand. Whether it's a household item, a food, a material, or a piece of technology, there's always a remarkable story waiting to be discovered. If you're curious about how things are made, where they come from, and why they exist, you've found the right place. Subscribe to The Story Behind It, and join us as we uncover the fascinating stories behind the ordinary. Because every object has a history, every invention has a purpose, and every everyday thing has a story behind it.